And we're back to HTML SVG. This time let us bring it all together by creating the Instagram logo from scratch. We need rectangle, circles and gradients. Let me start with an SVG and I create a basic rectangle with height, X and Y position, and by default it's black. Let me adjust the size of our SVG using width, height and viewbox. And I'll put the rectangle a little bit more in center of it. We also need a radius for our corners, and you can add that by using Rx and Ry. For now I'll give it a red fill and a stroke in black. Let me increase the stroke width and I'll try a radius of 20. That should be fine. So this is our outer rectangle. Let's move on to create the first circle. And I'll make this the bigger one. So let me adjust it here. It's the center circle. For now I've made it blue. When it comes to these specific values for X, Y, and later on the hex code for the colors, I've tried this before. So I've made notes. It's not like I do this completely from scratch. With positioning and the colors you have to try around a little bit or use a color picker. But I don't want to bore you by doing that here in real time. But everything else we're going to create from scratch. For now I'll set the fill to none for our elements, and we only have the black stroke. Now let's add the small circle on the top right. And this one, it shouldn't have a stroke, instead it has a simple fill. Let us stick to black for now. And now we'll have to find a good position. Let me use 140 and 60 for a radius of 10. Now it's time to create our gradients. I've created a linear and a radial. We need the depths for it. Both are filters. Let us create the linear gradient first. I call that gradient 1. So linear gradient gets an ID of gradient 1. And here again, when I add these specific values for the stops and the position of the gradient, I've tried that before and made notes. You can just copy them if you want to readjust it or play around with it. It's up to you. But X and Y here once again stands for the coordinates. So X is the horizontal, Y is the vertical. And I use values of 0.8 and 0 for x2. Linear gradient gets two colors. The first stop is for offset 0 and the color. That's the hex code C92BB7. Let me copy this. Second stop is for offset 1. And the hex code, according to the color picker that I've used, is 3051F1. We cannot see it for now as I haven't yet connected this gradient to an element. Let me do that right here. And we create an outer box for it later on, but let us first connect it. We can do so with a use tag, xlink, href will be the outer container, and the fill is the gradient ID. Let us call the outer container simply logo container. As I said, I have to create that afterwards, so it's not there yet, but the fill will use the URL with the ID selector gradient 1, just like this. As I've said, we'll also create a radial gradient. I'm going to call this gradient 2, and it will also be linked to our logo container. Let me create this container now so that we can actually see the first gradient. I'll put it right here. Yet again, a simple rectangle. ID is logo container. Make sure that it's the same that you have used for the href in the use tags. X, Y positions will adjust that. And width and height, I'll set it to 200. We also need a border radius, and don't forget to close it. Let me try 50. And this is what we've got now. So the linear gradient is already attached to it. X and Y, I set it to 0. Now let us take care of the radial gradient. I'll copy paste this element right here. But I have to change a couple of values. First up, it's now gradient 2. This is what we've used in the xlink as an ID selector. So make sure it's the same value for the second link. As it's a radial gradient, we need Cx and Cy and a radius instead of x1, y1, x2 and y2. Let me change it to radial for opening and closing. Now let me check the values. 0.2 for CX, 1 for CY, and 1.2 for the radius. I've added a couple of more stops, so not just 2. And hex code once again, I found them via a color picker. First one is FCD F8F. It's at offset 0. Second one is FB D377 and the offset is 0.1. I need 3 more colors, so I copy paste this. And now I'll just offset value in hex code. Third color is 0.25, fourth color is 0.35, final color is 0.65. And we shouldn't forget to add a stop opacity for the last color. And let us take care of the third hex code first. It's FA8E37. Fourth color is F73344. Final color F73344. So the same color, but we'll have to give it a stop opacity of 0. And now we've got this radial gradient down here. Let me adjust, for example, CY to 0, and you can see this the position. So this is what we've added to our logo container. Final step is to make everything that's black white. We've done that for a rectangle, the outer one, and the 2 circles. For the outer rectangle was the stroke. For the center circle it was the stroke as well. And for the small circle on the top right it was the fill. Let me just set it to white. And now we've got the Instagram logo created in HTML SVG. I hope this video was helpful, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.